Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Ageskely Stamus from Gearworks.com and the E2KG network on YouTube, back with another episode of E2KGn30, our 30-minute short format newscast where we try and run down 6 to 9 to 12, tonight it'll be 6, of the biggest stories in the games industry, or biggest are the ones that are most interesting to us. So tonight with me, I have up in the rotation, Mr. Swiss Guard. How you doing, Swiss?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Despite
So,
your troubles.
yeah, so I was just going to mention, so we are bringing this podcast to you tonight on a wing and a prayer. So my Lenovo Y50, I wish I could say my trusted and venerable Lenovo Y50, which has been my gaming laptop for a little under 2 years. I finally gave up the ghost for the last time tonight. The last time because I am not going to fix this thing this time. So this is about the third time that it has had a pretty catastrophic failure. And I came down to set up for the podcast, and it was sitting on a IPv4 cannot reboot blue screen of death. And then every subsequent attempt to reboot it, it came up with the only boot devices available were network devices. So I suspected that I've had a bad hard drive controller on that thing the whole time, and it may have just been the whole motherboard in general.
So are you going to Office Space it?
I'm not going to Office Space it. What's the biggest question for me right now is what I'm going to do about it. When it acted wonky a few months ago, actually just when we were about to launch the channel, and I had thought at that time that, and what I really want to do is I'm sketchy on gaming laptops now because I've had about 3 of the last 4, 2 of which were Asus machines, one of which was the Lenovo, have gone bad in less than the service time than I wanted them to. My CyberPower PC, FangBook 3, was actually the one of those 4 that was the most stable and reliable the entire time. So I don't know if I'm going to go the gaming laptop route again. I've kind of targeted and set up a dummy build on a wish list on Amazon of a small form factor gaming PC, which is probably what I actually want to do to replace it, but I don't know if I'm going to be in a rush to do that right now. So tonight I have very quickly restored my 2015 MacBook, what some of us call the MacBook Zero. So it was a return of the MacBook after the old white plastic one went away and was gone for years, and that's what I'm broadcasting from tonight. So,
well, I know, knowing you, Zeus, I know that you're probably frustrated that the Y50 did not live up to its. It wasn't reliable enough, but I also know that you're actually, secretly giddy about the opportunity to hash out a new build. So
you know me too well. Unfortunately, the failure of a device, the silver lining is definitely it's a justifiable reason for a new upgrade. So you have me right. So let's go ahead and get started with the rundown tonight. We have 6 news stories in the hopper. This was kind of still a bit of a lackluster week. But we will do the best that we can. So there's a bit of Bungie news, and that actually kind of forms the top third of our show. So Swiss, I'll let you get started with a more humanitarian side that Bungie is showing today.
Yeah, I saw this early today. As everybody knows, things aren't so great down in Houston with Hurricane Harvey, and a lot of companies are putting out ways that you can support the victims. But Bungie has announced that they are allowing Destiny 2 players to purchase a commemorative pin. So that'll give you a unique emblem in Destiny 2, and all the proceeds are going to benefit direct relief. So they have a blog post on their website explaining how you can either purchase the pin, or if you just want to be able to support directly and not go the game route. But it's a nice little gesture, and a lot of these. I read another article earlier today about J.J. Watt, Houston Texans defensive lineman, that he's been able to generate a lot of support. So, if you have the public eye and the public consciousness, like Bungie does, especially with this imminent release of Destiny 2, it's usually a good way to generate more than just to generate nice amounts of relief. So if you want to check that out, Bungie's blog post. But there should be some the pin should be available when the game launches. So we just thought we'd lead with that, and then now that we've kind of had a little seriousness, we're going to get back into this is a hobby, and we're lightening it up a little bit. But we're going to jump to another post about Bungie. Luke Smith talks Destiny 2 rewards for veteran players to loot caves and more. So you had this one, Zeus?
Yeah, and like I said, this is not my normal setup, and I didn't have time to get things in place as much as I would like. So you're going to have to, you and the listeners will have to give me a little leniency in a shifting, blasted Windows resizing in OS X obviously does not work the same it does as Windows. It is decidedly clunky and not efficient. So I hope I'm on the camera because I can't right now. I can't view the news story and the Hangout at the same time.
Everyone can see your wonderful, wonderful face.
So this news story is up over at Games Radar. So Bungie's Luke Smith talks Destiny 2 from rewards for veteran players to loot caves and more. I'm not going to do the entire synopsis of this. It's about a 20-minute interview, and then Games Radar then kind of summarizes some of the major drum beats. They're talking about reinstating a loot cave. Now, I don't even know exactly what this is. This is one of the big things about Destiny is, depending on how you played, your experience and things that you found could just be decidedly different than what other players experienced. I don't remember experiencing a loot cave, but the one design point here that they mentioned that definitely rings true with me is that the reward system in Destiny was just kind of very individual. And there were things, I'm sorry you're hearing the sound of a nice ice-cold Red Bull being poured right now, because due to our delay, it's very late, and I'm very tired. So, there were things like there were players who played and never got exotics or just didn't understand how to manage exotics. One of my big things was I got my first shader, and I was super pumped, and then I didn't play for a few weeks, and when I went back, I was like, oh man, it'd be really cool to get shaders, completely forgetting that the way that you get shaders is you trade in small amounts of silver, not at the primary silver hut when you initially land in the tower, but in the secondary silver kiosk, like around the corner from that. So I would just like to see, and they mention it here, that a more consistent reward system be instantiated that makes you feel. Maybe it doesn't have to be like Borderlands level loot drops, but something definitely that feels a little less stingy than maybe Destiny felt sometimes. Some other things that they mentioned are perks for veterans. Just a minor mention of the enemies. So this Destiny 2, at least the first campaign, is going to focus on the Cabal, which I think is really neat. I really like those guys as enemies. They were kind of one of the little shock and awe kind of enemies. The Vex were just kind of irritating and frustrating, but the Cabal were really scary because they're really super big guys, like walking around in armor. So it's going to be fun seeing them as a primary enemy in the initial campaign, and then it looks like what they're going to fixate and orient the games and expansion packs in the future of Destiny around is that each time it's going to focus on a given enemy that they've introduced. As far as the primary big bad, which kind of makes sense because it kind of sounds like the way a lot of TV seasons are going now, where you have one primary big bad who recurrently appears throughout the season. And then finally, they talk about well, not finally, but they talk about changing elements on your weapon so that you can have different weapon effects on the same weapon. So it kind of sounds like gems, or runes, like they might have in other weapon upgrade systems. They asked about a patch test realm. The Luke didn't commit to that, and then the rest of it is kind of minor, kind of humorous trivia stuff. So yeah, go right ahead.
You played the Destiny 2 beta on PS4, correct?
I have not. So
okay. I was curious about how much of this was kind of new information and how much the beta actually allowed you to to get a taste of it, but.
Yeah, it's a little tough to tell, but I guess the main thing that that I'm realizing from this is it doesn't really have anything to do with Destiny 2, and I'm sorry I'm a little discombobulated by what's going on with my screens right now. But next year I'm definitely going to have to. So I played far more betas this year than I had in the past because of the regular drumbeat we were trying to hit on the Band of Behaviors podcast, and then switching over and standing up the E2KG network. So I played way more betas. I was baited out by the time we got into the summer. I had just played so many betas, and that sucked up so much of my time and took away so much from playing released games that I've baited out. And now that it's going into this part of the season where maybe some of the more important betas are dropping, I just don't have the willingness to suck up playing those. But next year I need to come into the year with that in mind, and then give some more deliberate thought about how I want to pace myself throughout the year as far as playing betas. So no, I have not. I am hoping that that DBQ has. I believe he has, and he may have already talked about it a little, but we definitely need to get him to talk about it some more on upcoming episodes. So before I go to the next one, Swiss, anything else on Destiny 2?
No, I'm kind of on the outside looking in on Destiny. I've played less than Prime has, so
okay.
I haven't played Destiny 1, and I'm probably not going to pick up Destiny 2 just because I don't want to jump in after the fact, and I got plenty of other games in my backlog. So
right. So next story up is Logitech launches high-end wireless mechanical gaming keyboard and mouse. This is on over at PC Gamer. Wireless keyboards and mice have been, and I've been a part of this or have experienced this, have been this weird totem for PC gamers. Originally, at the outset, hardcore PC gamers had very little interest in utilizing wireless components in their gaming setup because of our fear that there would be latency and lag, and particularly if you were playing competitively or even just casually online, you didn't want that to be a reason why you wound up not having a good kill-death ratio in a given match. They have come a long way. In fact, I'm on a Logitech wireless keyboard right now that I definitely am a fan of, and I have used this for gaming periodically. These days, my take on wireless gaming peripherals would be they're fine. And I've also gotten less concerned about my kill-death ratio as I've gotten older. So these days, I'm more concerned about how the keyboard feels and how it works for me as a typist for when I'm doing content creation. And so again, this is a Logitech wireless keyboard that I'm on. Logitech is launching a new one. They're launching the Logitech G603 gaming mouse and the G613 mechanical gaming keyboard. This is pretty impressive that the keyboard is mechanical and wireless. Logitech's wireless gaming mice have been pretty good. I've had some minor problems with one or two, but overall they've been pretty good. Supposedly the mouse boasts 1 millisecond latency. That's pretty good. Again, if you're competitive, that may even be still too much for you, so your mileage may vary. They talk about their proprietary PixArt 3366 sensor that they include. The big thing here for me, and this is one thing that I've really liked about some of the newest wireless mice that have come out, is these incredibly long battery endurance that they have. It used to be when these things first came out, you might be changing the batteries out once a month or every couple of weeks. The most recent Logitech mice, wireless mice that I've used, one of the big things they do is they go into some type of sleep or suspend state, and they don't reactivate on mouse movement. So one of the problems used to be that if the mouse picked up any movement at all, which could happen because your house settled or you bumped into the table or any number of things in the middle of the night, the mouse would wake back up. And this is actually the most recent Logitech wireless mouse that I've been using. I forget what this thing's designation is, and it's a little dusty because I haven't used it recently. But this is one of these mice that when you go to use it again, it doesn't wake up just when you move the mouse. It waits until you actually hit the key or left click, and that helps conserve a lot of battery power. So on the new ones, on the 613 or on the 603 gaming mouse, they're talking about 500 hours of battery life on 2 AA batteries, which means it could live for as much as 18 months before you have to change batteries. The launch price for the peripherals, the G603 gaming mouse, is $70, and the 613 gaming keyboard will be $150. And if I should have tried this a little earlier, but I will try and get up. I don't know how well this is going to work, but Swiss, you can tell me. Is can you see the keyboard and mouse now?
No, unfortunately.
Okay, so I don't know what it shared out. I'm getting the
screenshot of you now.
Okay, all right.
There you go. You're moving again.
So
I haven't been in the market for new gaming peripherals for PC in a while. Is this $150 price point? How competitive is that with regular gaming keyboards? Is there like a huge premium for the wireless factor or not?
Yeah, it looks like there's a little bit of a premium on there. You will generally pay, I will say, $100 to $200 for a good gaming keyboard, in my opinion. If you add mechanical to that, you could go from $200 to $300. I think I've generally, for my mechanical gaming keyboards, like I have a Rocat reuse. Wait, I'm getting the brand name mixed up. I think it's a Rios Rocat MK2 or something like that, and I want to say that was like a $170, $190 keyboard. I'm trying to look around the Geek Command Center here and see. I have an IO Gear mechanical keyboard, I think, over there, and that was probably just a little bit over 100. So for a budget mechanical keyboard, you're probably going to be in the low 100s. For a nice mechanical keyboard, you're probably going to be in the 150s to high 100s, and you'll probably be over 200 for some of the premium mechanical keyboards. So this is probably like a budget mechanical keyboard combined with the wireless functionality, and that's what probably gets you to the 150 price point. I will say for people who are not like absolute keyboard snobs, a budget mechanical keyboard you'll be completely fine with, especially if you haven't used mechanical keyboards and it's like your first one. I wouldn't necessarily tell you to go buy a $200 or $300 mechanical keyboard.
Right. Well, I have a wireless keyboard at work, but I mean, obviously it's nowhere near. It's just like the Dell thing that came with whatever system had been purchased way back when.
Right.
And, it frustrates me sometimes because it'll just stop logging keystrokes and then it'll catch itself back up, but log them in a jumbled order.
Right.
So this
is the thing that's really interesting with this, right? So supposedly, if I read the article correctly, the wireless technology they're going to use is Bluetooth. Now,
well, it looks like there's two. You can switch it to Bluetooth mode, and it'll increase the latency.
Oh, okay, so they are going with RF then, right?
It must be.
I would think. I was kind of surprised when I saw Bluetooth in the article, and I wasn't sure I was reading it right. So this is what Logitech has been doing. I just happen to have a bunch of Logitech right around me. So what Logitech has been doing, and this is my Logitech T650 touchpad, right? So which I kind of like using for like clerical work and like when I'm doing spreadsheets or doing my accounting ledger and things, it's fine. I don't like using it for multimedia. But the big thing that Logitech switched to a few years ago is they started using this universal RF dongle. And they've always used, not always used these, but Logitech was one of the first people that decided to not use Bluetooth and use proprietary RF so that they were completely in control of the signal between the peripheral and the PC. And that's the thing that I think the original Xbox 360 controller used. It had its own, I want to say it had its own RF signal with RF receivers on the console. I think that's what it used. But in general, a wireless peripheral that comes with its own RF, an RF dongle, has historically been better than Bluetooth. And what Logitech started doing is they started using a unified one. And so what this thing does, they I think they typically have a white band on them, where their single point device RF dongles have an orange band. But with these white band ones, what happens is if I plug this in, I can connect any wireless and any number, I think, of wireless Logitech peripherals that I'm using to the single unified receiver. So I could plug this into my MacBook and tether both my Logitech keyboard and the T650 touchpad to it, and just use the one receiver instead of having to put like 2 or 3 in there. So it would make more sense to me that these gaming mechanical keyboard and wireless mouse set would use similar technology. So that's about peripherals, but let's talk a little bit about technologies that are going into Star Citizen.
Yeah, I kind of figured that you'd like that I selected this article, because you know how much I enjoy Star Citizen news. So
we got to put those millions of Kickstarter dollars to
that was right? That was exactly my thought when I saw this headline. So this comes from Eurogamer. Forget VoIP. Star Citizen has VoIP that maps your face's movements onto a character in real time. So, like Zeus said, another excellent use of Kickstarter funds. I mean, it's cool, I guess. I watched a little demonstration video, and what they're doing is they take your webcam. So there's nothing, no special equipment or anything, although I think that the company that they're partnering kind of with to do it will have a camera that's going to be specially designed for Star Citizen if you want to go that route. But it should work with, you know, most webcams, and they kind of just track your kind of eyebrow and around your nose and your lips. And he shows, you know, the system mapping your face in real time, and if you turn your face, it recognizes the fact that you're turned away, and it will stop, and something's in the way, it realizes it. But it takes that mapping and then it just kind of applies it to the rig in the game. And I mean, it's pretty cool. It showed I feel like when he was talking, they don't really have very good emotions or the ability to around the lips. It just felt, the talking looked very unnatural. But as he scrunched his face over, you know, it was pretty good about keeping track of that. And the eyebrow tracking was good. And it even tracks your eyeball movements, which was kind of nifty. So from a technical perspective, you know, I think it's kind of cool. I mean, I guess you can role play or whatever in the game, or, you know, express your displeasure with your colleagues and whatnot. But it just feels very technical demo-ish. And, you know, I don't know how much this actually contributes to the overall experience of the game, but they have they're ambitious, and this is one way that they can continue to push the envelope, I guess, in game development. But another example of Star Citizen development. I believe this will be in the Alpha 3.0, I think. But they yeah, I don't know. If I was a project manager and I was pitched this, I would say we might have more important things to be focusing on.
Yeah, wouldn't be at the top of my backlog in my sprint, right? So, right. So I guess one thing I will say is, I guess I have two thoughts on it. One, it does feel like it would help personalize the game and make you feel a little more immersed in it. I recently, and maybe we'll talk about this on the discussion show at some point, but I've recently been thinking that, you know, one of the ultimate culminations of this that we'll see in terms of personalization, and I don't really know why this can't be done now. I don't know why you can't pay to go in for, and it might be expensive. Let's hope we can get it down to maybe $200, but let's say it'd be $5. I don't really know why you can't go in and pay to have an hour session at a studio, to have yourself mocapped, and get a file that allows you to import that into a game, right? Like, I don't know why that's not like a stub, like a module in DirectX that it can allow for, import of a certain file that would be with interfaces that would be compatible with any game program to be compatible with DirectX. And I've been thinking that that's might be the ultimate one of the key milestones that we'll be headed towards in terms of game immersion and individuality. Either going in and paying for a session like that, or really, I don't understand why there's not like a mocap mask and mocap stickies for a mask that you can put on your face, or however they attach them to your face, and a suit or shirt or something that you can't order, and just mocap yourself. Not the full combat moves, right, but like facial animation and things to get yourself personalized in the game.
That's kind of an interesting thought. Like, I mean, we already have, your gamer handle on the PlayStation Network or something. You can choose the avatar. You integrate that with Steam or Xbox Live or PlayStation Network, then you have that for the platform.
Yeah, and all these platforms are trying to do, interactive gesture-based controls, and they're all coming with cameras again. Why can't you just go and buy like a couple, light point stencils or whatever and stick over your face and have your facial animations captured? So on one hand, it sounds like a neat way to personalize the game and make it more immersive. On the other hand, kind of like you said, and not even just like it may not be the most important feature, but my big thing is it's been done before, right? Rainbow Six Vegas did this. You could and it was not great, but you could capture your face front and side, and it would map it over the character model in the game, and you would be you.
Do you remember way back when, I think it was for Perfect Dark on the N64 or something? I have this vague recollection of using the Game Boy camera and then connecting it to like the N64, and you could take your picture, and there was like an early demo of Perfect Dark where they actually kind of took a screenshot of your face and as a texture map and put it over something.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I was not a Nintendo gamer during that era, but like I said, I don't think this is anything really new. Again, I'm not going to knock them too much for it, because it probably makes people feel like those characters are more them. But yeah, I don't know if it would be the feature at the top of my list that I would want to make sure got done.
Just as a really quick, I just did a quick Google search, and 2010 news article, Perfect Dark Beta analysis, they removed face mapping. So and there's a screenshot of like an N64 controller with like a Game Boy camera attached to the thing. So that was in way back when. But anyway.
All right, so Swiss, I think that you got one more story about Capcom and Street Fighter.
Yeah, so this one seems to have hit across the web today a lot, and as you probably noticed, a lot of the stories I choose for this are ones that humor me. And this was, in and of itself, it's kind of neat. So Capcom is re-releasing Street Fighter 2 on the SNES. So they are literally making SNES carts in a limited edition run, 5,500 units, retail $100 each. So it's going to come in like a quarter. I got mine from Gama Sutra, but the store's in a lot of places. It's going to come in a trifold box with foil, gloss, and embossments. Inside, you'll find a working game cartridge, an instruction booklet, and other retro pack-in surprises. So one nifty thing about it, or depending on your opinion, is that it comes in 2 colors. So opaque Ryu headband red, or glow-in-the-dark Blanca green. So, but you can't pick. It's random. They're completely random. So I know how much you love random loot drops, but at least they're both the same game. You know, it's not like one is like enhanced edition and one is the sorry, you just wasted $100 edition.
Right. From the picture I saw, I really like the red. It's a really dark, deep red. So I really like that.
But I think why it's hit the web so hard today is because of the inclusion of a legalese, I guess. Says this is included in, there's an advisory, like a warning label, right? Use of this reproduction game cartridge on the SNES gaming hardware may cause the SNES console to overheat or catch fire. The SNES hardware is deemed a vintage collectible, so please exercise extreme caution when using the product and make sure there is fire extinguishment equipment nearby. Use of the product is at the sole risk of the user. So I don't understand why.
Do we think that's real, or are they just trolling their fans?
This has to be a way to. This has to be a successful viral marketing campaign.
Okay, all right, yeah.
It has to be, right? I mean, if they're making an SNES cartridge, why would it be flammable?
Right.
I don't know.
Right. But then that begs the question, why are they making a Super NES cartridge at all?
Because it's cool, man. It's 30th anniversary, Street Fighter. But I saw in the Eurogamer had this same article, and the company that they're partnering with, Capcom is partnering with, IM8-bit, they've already sold out. It's already sold out. So I'm sorry if you're hearing about this for the first time on the podcast. You're too late. Unless you go through the eBay scalper route, in which case I'm sure you're going to pay more than $100. But yeah, then again, I wonder if it's sold out because of this viral marketing, but it's just got to be like a funny thing. It has to be.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Those crazy Capcomers. So the last story of the night is over on Game Informer. Call of Duty World War II beta launches one day early. Now, I'm having a hard time tracking this. Partially maybe due to my head cold and allergies, but partially due to maybe the way it's written or the way it's marketed and messaged by Activision. So the beta for Call of Duty World War II is supposed to launch on September 1st, which is tomorrow. But Activision opened it up early for players with codes or anyone who pre-ordered on consoles. So I don't understand whether this is the first beta or the second beta. I think this is the second beta, and it has some additional content in it on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. It's content that's not new for the PS4 players who apparently had access to it in the first beta, but the Xbox One players did not. So the beta is already live. It's available through September 4th. So this is, again, a thing where I feel like next year I need to plan this better, right? Because here's a big, meaty, juicy beta that a lot of people are going to be playing. Although my personal preference for betas is I don't want to play the betas that everybody else is playing, because then, there's nothing worthwhile for me to talk about because everybody already knows it. But it's a neat little drop that's being made available over Labor Day weekend, and I talk often in terms of game releases and how we've moved away from every single game release coming out in the holiday season and getting back to kind of sprinkling that throughout the year, and key drop points being what's the big game that comes out before Memorial Day, and then what's the big game that comes out over Independence Day to take care of all those single, people or college kids going on spring break. Pre-spring break is also when some games drop, key games like Horizon Zero Dawn. For those years that I had in college where I didn't go on spring break and I just hung out around my dorm, and it was nice to have a new game to chew into. So this game, the beta for this game is going to be available over the Labor Day weekend. The actual release for the game is early November, November 4th, and it releases simultaneously on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. And so there you go. You can get in on the beta unless it's too late, and you can play this weekend, and you can be part of the conversation in these 2 months leading up to the game's launch. That is going to do it for us tonight. We ran not too shabbily. We're pretty close to time. I think we're like 5 minutes over. So, Swiss, anything that you want to plug or mention?
Nope. have fun, speccing out hardware.
Right. For me, so a couple of housekeeping notes. The Dark Hypotheses podcast, we have one more episode. If you have not viewed the most recent episode that covered, I guess, the second to last episode and featured yet another walk-on appearance by Mr. Joseph Malazzi, the show's creator and showrunner, you should definitely check that out. We have one more episode to record. We've had to move it around because Dave has had some tests and exams that he's trying to get through. I believe we're going to try and record tomorrow night. Mr. Malazzi is on the move right now, so he may be able to pop in. This is the first time he's ever pre-arranged with us to try and be on the show, so that's another big milestone for us. We unfortunately have had to move the podcast around to accommodate schedules, and we're going to try and record tomorrow night. Mr. Malazzi may be able to drop in. He has some meetings and whatnot, so he may make it. He may not. And of course, he, us, and all the other Dark Matter fans are still anxiously waiting in anticipation to find out whether or not they're going to be renewed for season 4 by Sci-Fi. That decision has not been made yet, and that word has not come through. I'm hoping that we hear something tomorrow, because I think the word was this was supposed to be the week that the decision was supposed to be made. So that's for the Dark Hypotheses. Again, in development right now, Dave and I are talking about doing a Defenders podcast. We were not able to kick it off last weekend, again, due to Dave prepping for exams. We may be trying to kick it off this weekend, so he and I still need some time to talk about that. If we don't go with the Defenders, we'll be targeting something else, and then we'll get that word out to you as well. In the meantime, the Enough to Keep Going podcast has moved from Monday nights to Tuesday nights is when we do the live show for that. And then it's immediately available on the YouTube channel. I do the best I can to get it posted and moved over to SoundCloud and onto my personal blog at gearworks.com. So you should be able to consume it in those places as well. And in the meantime, E2KGn30 is the one show that continues to execute on schedule and remain in its time slot and its day. So we will continue to do this live show on Thursdays. I think the last thing is again, also in development, we still have to talk this through and get a little more detail wrapped around it. But I believe this next month in October, we'll be kicking off our financial industry oriented gaming news podcast, which we're only going to do once a quarter after we've seen a bunch of the earnings calls come out. So I believe we're going to be doing the first episode of that in October after what is Q3 for calendar year 17 closes out, and hopefully we see quarterly reports come out from a lot of the gaming companies in the industry. So that is going to do it for me on behalf of myself, Agascles Stamus from gearworks.com and the E2KG network and Swiss Guard. Thanks again for joining us. Check in next week for another episode of E2KGn30, and please hit the channel up and check out the other podcasts that I just mentioned and view them at your leisure for your pleasure. That's going to do it for us. We are out of here.
Good night, everyone.